Hi, I'm Zach Reiser, and welcome back to another bass effects review video. So by popular demand, I'm going to get into the Source Audio Manta bass filter today. Unbelievably dense little pedal. I don't have near enough time to show even close to everything this can do. So today I'm just going to get into my favorite filter settings, and I'm only going to show envelope filters. I'm not going to get into it controlling it with an expression pedal, the LFO, a hot hand, etc. Just not enough time. I'll start with upward envelopes, I'll go to downward envelopes, and then at the end, if I have time, I'll show how I blend it with a couple of my other effects to get some other unique sounds. So without further ado, here is my dry bass tone, Dingwall ABZ 6-string on the neck pickup. Okay, so starting with the upward envelopes, just as a reference point for you, I have the frequency knob at about 10 o'clock, I have the speed at about 3 o'clock, and I have the depth knob also at about 4 o'clock. Now, it doesn't look like that because it's a preset, but anyway, just so you know where we're at. So starting with the 4-pole low-pass filter, this is kind of your classic funk Bootsy Collins low-pass filter sound. Now, the Manta does have built-in distortions because distortions tend to bring out the characteristics of filters more. I don't use the built-in distortions because I like to have my own choice of distortions to run into each of these sounds. But just to give you an idea, here's a little bit of overdrive running into that same filter setting. You can hear how much more accented all the filter's characters are. Now, let's switch over to a synthier side of things. So this is my Boss OC2 into a gated fuzz setting into the same filter, and now you're going to get kind of that Moog synth bass vibe. Okay, now let's slow the speed of the envelope down and you get kind of that blooming envelope filter sound. Very cool. So this is all just the 4-pole low-pass filter setting. Let's go back, put a little bit of overdrive on, and now let's switch to the filter number 4, which is kind of like a beefed up Electro-Harmonix baseballs sound. You can kind of hear it's got that vocal characteristic that the old baseballs had. Now with the synthy sounds, OC2 gated fuzz, it's quite a different beast. Very aggressive sounding filter, very squelchy. Okay, let's move on to filter type number 5. I really like this filter. Let me get to my cheat sheet here. So this is a notch filter running into a low-pass filter. With the settings that I had with my classic envelope, but on that, it sounds like this with my dry bass with a little overdrive. I like this filter because it's almost like a mixture of a phaser and a classic filter. I especially like this sound with the synth setup here, OC2 gated fuzz. Really kind of chewy. It's not as quacky as the low-pass filters are. Another setting I like with this filter type, going back to my clean sound, is I slow the envelope down, put a little bit of reverb on, and it becomes kind of a nice textural filter. Just kind of that slow, blooming, opening phaser sound. Pretty sound. All right, moving on to filter number 7. You can hear it almost sounds like someone going yar, yar, yar. Very accented with the synth setup here. And this kind of reminds me of this bass line. So this is kind of similar, vocal and quality, but even more extreme, I think. Same setting, but a much slower envelope. Last upward envelope sound I'm going to show you is a phaser, because envelope phasers are really cool and they're not used enough. So this is an envelope phaser, a little bit of overdrive, and my dry bass tone. Same settings with my synthy sound here. I'll actually play a similar bass line. Very cool. Okay, switching to downward envelopes. So these were all upward. So now we're going to go to a downward envelope setting. This is kind of a 2-pole low-pass filter. So yet again, kind of getting into that Moog-ish territory, loosely. Here's with my dry bass and a little bit of overdrive. Very laser gun sound with the synth setup here. You almost get into like an acid house style bass line when you get to the lower register. Same setting just for fun with a much slower envelope. All right, let's go to the filter number 4, which was kind of that extreme baseballs filter, but now with a downward envelope. Totally different vibe. Synth sound instead of dry bass. Slower bass line. Unique filter. Wouldn't use it all the time, but it's a cool sound. This is actually my preset, which is this downward envelope again, but it's the filter type number 5, that kind of unique filter that was that notch into a low-pass filter. I really love this filter. Another sound I really like with this filter is to use some kind of OC2 into a bit crusher into the same filter. You want to get a little bit extra synthiness on there, put a little bit of reverb on afterwards. Cool. Okay, another downward envelope. Let's go to filter number 9. So this is This is another triple peak filter. Let's keep that synth sound on with this. Yet again, very vocal-like with the triple peaks. Slow the envelope down. Slow it down a little more, actually, just for fun. One more downward envelope setting, because earlier I said I liked envelope phasers. Let's do a downward envelope phaser. Very laser gunny when you get a downward envelope phaser. It's a little bit extreme with the dry bass, but I still like it. Same settings, but with that synth sound again. Okay, so hopefully you're getting a good vibe of the upward envelopes versus the downward envelopes, some of the different filter types with my dry bass and overdrive, or with my synth setup of the OC2 into the gated fuzz. Since I got a little bit of time left, I'll show you a couple other settings that I really like with the Manta. So one is simply just taking off the OC2 and using the gated fuzz sound by itself, which sounds incredibly harsh, but you put it in to that downward envelope setting on filter number 5, and you get a pretty cool synthy lead sound instead of a synthy bass sound. And now let's put that into a real big reverb, and you start getting more of that synth lead sound. Let's slow the envelope sound down a little bit. So now it's a slower envelope attack. Another thing I like to do is I like to go back to my synth sound here, and I actually like to use two modulations or two filters. So I'll use a modulation from the Mobius into a filter on the Manta, and you get a much kind of just a denser synth sound. So here is the synth into the phaser. And now let's put this whole setting into that downward envelope. It's cool because you still get the filter funky sound, but you get this sweeping sound in the background. Let's try a flanger. So here's the synth into the flanger, into the up envelope. Very cool sound. Okay, so that's kind of mixing modulations or mixing filters together. One other sound that I really like is to take a tremolo. I have a pretty extreme tremolo here. This is a pattern tremolo off the Mobius, so it's kind of a rhythmic tremolo. But now the tremolo will trigger the envelope every single time, and you get this very unique sound like this. Same sound, but with my up envelope. Little reverb. Anyway, you get the idea. So you can use tremolos to kind of auto-trigger your envelope filters and getting some little bit more synth-sounding, kind of pulsing LFO-style filters. You can use an LFO, of course, but it's a different sound when you use an LFO compared to running a tremolo into an envelope. The last thing I'll show for today, though, is kind of a unique setting that I also like using, and it's taking this crystals sound from my Eventide here, and then running it into an upward envelope. I'm going to use that filter type number 5 with a slower attack. And now what's cool is you get the trails of the crystals are filtered out as the dynamics go down naturally. And you can hear the filter start to shut. I'm going to make the filter a little bit quicker actually. Same thing. Okay, so I think you get a good vibe of at least what the envelope features are for the Source Audio Manta bass filter. If I have time, I'll come back and try to do a video that shows expression control and the LFOs, etc. But there's a lot of other great videos already out there for the Manta that I think show those settings nicely. So I thought I would just give you my flavor on the Manta. Anyway, if you liked what you heard here, please subscribe below, and I will be back very shortly with another bass effects review video. Thanks.